You can make an argument that if the Eagles don't miss those 14 or 16 missed tackles, the score is looking very different. And this can't happen against the Minnesota Vikings. Dalvin Cook will fry you. If you think DeAndre Swift did what he did, putting up 150 yards plus, Dalvin Cook will put up 200 yards on you if you allow him to.
Happy Thursday, everybody, and good morning, NFC East. Jeff Kerr here, and it's Tone Thursday, people. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe to JAKIB Sports. We got my man, my quarterback, Tone DeShields with me today. How you feeling, Tone?
I'm doing good, my man. It's Thursday, Thirsty Thursday. we used to use that back in college, right? Thirsty Thursdays.
Hey, it's still Thirsty Thursday.
Oh man, but I'm feeling good, my man. I'm glad to be a part of the show. Every Monday and Thursday. Make sure you guys keep it locked on Good Morning NFC East with Jeff Kerr. This show is growing, you guys, and we appreciate you guys for always supporting the content. Just keep smashing that like button. Keep supporting Jeff Kerr. Keep supporting JAKIB Sports, and more to come.
Yeah, exactly, Tone. And I guess we're going to get started here. We were just talking backstage about the Giants-Titans game on Sunday, right? And you said pretty much the Titans blew it. And yeah. I can't disagree with you on that.
Absolutely, yeah. I was rewatching it, and I'm not going to say it was the cleanest game by the Titans by any stretch of the imagination, but they were in control most of that game. And then there just came a point where they just fell off a cliff. They allowed the Cowboys to drive down the field. They couldn't stop the run. And what I'm noticing, right, a theme, not just with the Titans, but throughout the NFL, with the Eagles as well, teams are struggling to stop the run in week one. And could that speak to the lack of physicality or the lack of tackling reps during the offseason, during training camp? I don't know. You tell me, Jeff.
I mean, that's what I was going to ask you. Why do you think that is? I mean, to me, it's – and again, it's a double-edged sword here, right, Tone?
Absolutely.
Because we can say they don't practice hard enough, but it's not like the Eagles are the only team that does this. The Giants are the only team that does this. It's if you're not Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, or Pete Carroll, it feels like the entire league does this.
Or Dan Campbell.
Well, Dan Campbell he's someone – you know what? We need another hour show to talk about Dan Campbell on here. But, I got to say this, Tone. It just feels like week one is an extended version of the preseason for a lot of teams.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the only cause for optimism that I have, especially for the Philadelphia Eagles, because week one, we saw them struggling to stop the run, and we thought that first play by Kazir White, the tackle on the flat, and I'll give the Eagles credit. They do a great job covering the flat in the passing game, but, when it came to tackling, defending the run, they were very porous. Defensive line couldn't break through, couldn't get off their blocks. It just made it difficult for the linebackers, and it was just poor tackling overall. You can make an argument that if the Eagles don't miss those 14 or 16 missed tackles, the score is looking very different. And this can't happen against the Minnesota Vikings. Dalvin Cook will fry you. If you think DeAndre Swift did what he did, putting up 150 yards plus, Dalvin Cook will put up 200 yards on you if you allow him to. So, yeah, man, as a matter of fact, let's stay there. What's your thoughts on this Vikings matchup right now?
Well, it's funny, Tom, because I didn't really get to watch much of the Packers-Vikings game. I was all –
I watched it, actually. I rewatched that game, too.
I was in my
that's the dope thing about NFL Plus, right? You get to rewatch all these games on your own time.
Yeah, NFL Plus is great. But,
yeah.
I mean, just from early looks, I felt the Packers were just off. But it wasn't like it was week one off last year. You know what I mean? Like, they had DeVonta Adams. Aaron Rodgers always has slow starts this season, but it just felt different. Like, I'm not sold on Romeo Dobbs. Christian Watson, I don't know. I mean, the guy gets open, but does Aaron Rodgers trust him? I know Aaron Rodgers didn't have Allen Lazard. To me, it just feels like I need to see more out of the Vikings. I think Monday is more of a prove-it game for the Vikings than it is for the Eagles.
Well, Aaron Rodgers tried to exercise that trust in Christian Watson on the first play of the game. He had him deep, wide open. When I say wide open, he was able to knit a sweater. He was able to make some tea, bake a cake, tuck the beds in. tuck the kids in for the bed. He was able to do a lot, and he just flat out dropped it. And I think that is a microcosm for how that game went in totality. It just didn't start well. And Aaron Rodgers has to build this trust with this new wide receiver group. So that's going to be interesting to watch. But Minnesota, I'm watching that game, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, they're really not doing anything too dominant, if you ask me. Their offensive line can be beat. And even their defense, they play a similar defense to the Eagles, so it shouldn't be hard for the Eagles to game plan against it. But again, if they allow Dalvin Cook to average 4 yards a carry, just 4, then at that point, Justin Jefferson is going to have a field day. And I'm curious to see how they balance who guards Justin Jefferson, when and where and how. So,
to me, and again, this is all about the missed tackles. The Eagles had the highest missed tackle rate in week 1. They had the second most missed tackles in the league. And, you were talking about the Vikings offensive line. And this is what – and I'm going to segue in here to Giants-Panthers for a second. This is why I think the Giants might have a shot to beat Carolina, because Carolina doesn't have a good offensive line. And I think that's what hurt Baker Mayfield, at least early in the game on Sunday, because when you're playing Cleveland, you got Myles Garrett, you got Jadeveon Clowney, you got those guys coming at you. We didn't get to see Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari last week, but they could play this week. And this was kind of shocking to me. The Giants actually had a pretty good pressure rate. Not saying it was top half or anything like that, but for what they had to deal with, and their secondary being as banged up as it is, they did a pretty good job against Tennessee. I think overall they ranked like 18 for 19, but I'm curious to see how that's going to fare against a Carolina team at home that Carolina's lost 8 in a row. I mean, it's very possible we could see the Giants go 2-0.
It is possible, but I do also believe that Tennessee Titans offensive line isn't the greatest either. I saw Derrick Henry kind of fighting for his life a little bit just to get 3 yards. And again, week 1, I'm trying not to overreact to any game, because teams have to establish trends. And you don't really get a trend chart on a team until about maybe week 3, week 4. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to overreact. I'm going to look at it as, okay, the Giants probably are going to tighten some things up. We'll see. But I still saw a piss poor Daniel Jones. I'll be honest. He didn't wow me in any way, so I'm not worried about him. But as far as the Eagles go, I'm going to look at it as, okay, it was week 1. You were shocked by the environment. The Lions overall shocked you. I actually think they underestimated that team, no matter what they say. I honestly believe they underestimated that team. They underestimated that environment, and they admitted to the environment part. But I just think they underestimated the opponent, and they didn't think they would come out with that much grit and firepower. And I think it changes this week. I hope, as a matter of fact, the coaches saw what they saw on tape, and they, put these guys to the grinder. I saw in a post-game, how the Eagles always do the team speech videos on YouTube and stuff like that, and you see them coming into the locker room, and then they, talk about the game briefly. It's like a minute. The videos are about a minute long. Nick Sirianni said something very key to me, and we're going to see if it translates. But he said, you guys, we're going to have a lot of tough conversations this week, and it starts with the coaches. So we'll see whatever that means or however that materializes. What's your thoughts on that?
So I'll just say this. I agree with you. I do think they underestimated the line. And I'll tell you what. I think they took the mentality of the fans this week. I kept trying to tell people, and I said this to you last week, Lions are better than a lot of people think. I didn't want to hear they were 3-13-1. That's BS to me. They're a good football team. They had a good offense. And that offense ended up scoring the second most points in the league last week. Only the Chiefs scored more than that. So, and this is what I want to bring in too, because they got Washington this week. And I think Washington, they're going to bring the heat. They were number 1 in the league in pressure rate last week. And this is without Chase Young. They have Montez Sweat. They got Jonathan Allen. I'm curious to see how Detroit responds to a Washington team that, let's be honest, Carson Wentz was good on Sunday, but I still can't get over the whole 4 for 11 thing over 5 yards. And how's Detroit going to react to that? Are they going to be better in pass coverage? Are they going to let Terry McLaurin just pull an A.J. Brown on them and have his? I'm really curious to see how this game pans out too. This is why I like week 2, because I feel like we're going to get more of an overall feeling of how your team's going to be. Like I think I know how the Eagles are. I'm pretty sure the Eagles are good, but how's Washington going to be? How are the Giants going to be? And I got to be honest, we could have 3 teams 2-0 in the NFC East next week, or 2, but one of them may not be the Eagles because of the quality of opponent they're playing.
Yeah, just how we call it overreaction Monday. It's gonna eventually for week 2 be overcorrection Tuesday. So I think that's what's going to happen. That's the theme of week 1 is overreactions. The theme of the theme of week 2 is overcorrections. I think you're going to see a lot of teams overreact to what they saw on their teams, and you're going to see overcorrections. And for example, DeVonta Smith not getting any catches. You're going to see DeVonta Smith getting a lot of targets this week. And not to say they're not going to target A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert, but you're going to see a concerted effort to spread that ball around this week against the Vikings.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you. I'm not a fantasy football genius by any means, even though I do have 13 teams. I'm not going to lie here, but I had DeVonta Smith in 7 of them. He didn't make a catch. So, yeah, I actually think he's going to I agree. I think they're going to make a more conscientious effort to target DeVonta Smith. And the only reason I think that is because they keep preaching it. Shane Steichen, we got to get him the ball. Nick Sirianni, we got to get him the ball. I mean, that's not fool's gold. To me, this is where I think Eagles fans overreacted to the whole DeVonta Smith no-catch thing. I don't think they realize that Minnesota did the same with Van Thielen. I mean, he had a couple catches Sunday, but they targeted Justin Jefferson. The Rams targeted Cooper Kupp. The Bills target Stephon Diggs. The Chiefs are different, but, I mean, the Dolphins target Tyreek Hill. You target your number 1 guy. A.J. Brown's that. And when you're getting as open as he is against Jeff Okudah and guys like that, you got to take advantage of it. And let's face it, the Vikings secondary, Patrick Peterson is not Patrick Peterson from 5 years ago. It just isn't.
Yeah, when you say that, it makes me think about what John McMullen always says. He says games always have a theme or an identity. Games take on an identity. And I believe that Lions-Eagles matchup, the way everything got baked in, you saw this team leaning on Jalen Hurts' legs to make things happen, and you saw them leaning on their best playmaker. So I think it was a combination of that's just the way things played out. And also, I think that the Eagles are just going to change the way they did that. I don't expect them to just force feed A.J. Brown every game. But again, when you have a number 1 guy like A.J. Brown, and the way he played on Sunday, how can you not feed that guy, especially if they got him a single coverage? They're not doubling him. It's kind of hard not to throw him the ball. But I think it's going to be much more lethal for this team if they get everyone involved. This team can become significantly more dangerous to the opponent if everyone is a danger to breaking this game wide open. DeVonta Smith is a guy who's very talented. Not really a short yardage catch guy. He's a guy that's going to average 14 to 15, 16 yards per catch. He's that kind of guy. He's that kind of chain mover. You know what I mean? And things just didn't start off well for DeVonta Smith. He had a drop, but then his first catch of the game, he got called back because of a penalty. And, it just didn't seem like DeVonta Smith's day. And it never felt like and I don't want to say it was his fault, but, games just take on a complexion. And I just don't think things shook out the way it shook out for him. I would like them to get Dallas Goedert much more involved. He showed that he was wide open all game, but I just think that Hurts didn't really have a time to diagnose. I believe for the most part, A.J. Brown was his design first read, and a lot of people got to understand that he's only running the plays that the coaches call, and he's going through his progressions based off of the play. So on a given play, if his progressions are A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, DeVonta Smith, he's going to go through that. And if he has no time to diagnose, which he didn't, he's going to hit A.J. Brown, or he's going to find Dallas Goedert before he finds DeVonta Smith. So I think fans have to keep that in mind as well. Jalen Hurts is only running the plays the way they were designed to be run. And, these days it's, high, low, and then your hot route, your outlet route. It's not really that complex. It's not really that complex anymore. Not too many guys at the very least aren't really going through their X, their Z, their Y, their running, but they're not going through all their reads. You know, they've simplified the game to a point where these guys just go high, look low, nothing there, hit your bell out, or if you got legs, get out of there. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's basically what the Ravens do with Lamar Jackson, right? It's you go deep, or you look for your Z low. I mean, for some reason now teams keep the Z lower than they've ever done, and which is weird because I'm used to the Z going on fly routes, going on deep outs. But overall, Tone, I got to ask you this, just because we saw the Lions last week, and it's easy for me to preview Commanders lines because I watch both games deeply: Eagles, Lions, and Commanders, Jaguars. If the Lions play like they did last week, do they beat the Commanders?
I'm actually rooting for the Lions because there's something about what they got brewing over there that's pretty interesting and pretty fascinating. I like their talent, and I believe they can catch. I believe they can catch Washington. I actually think they're pretty evenly matched. The Lions show that they're capable of putting up points. You know, that's just the reality. But here's something that's interesting that one of our guys in the chat, Jordan Neff, shout out to him. He says Eagles haven't won week 2 since 2016.
Yeah. Yep.
That is fascinating. I never thought about that. You know, what's your thoughts on that?
Starts in 16.
Say that again.
They haven't had 2-0 starts in 16 because remember in 17 they lost to the Chiefs week 2.
Right. That's correct. That's correct. Even in the Super Bowl run, you're right. That was that. And I don't know. We're going to see how this thing pans out. It's really going to be fascinating. But we have our guy, Kevin, in the background. We're going to bring him up very soon after the break. You want to take us to the break, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could have done this yourself. I mean, Emma Boylard, former coworker of mine at CBS. He's doing a different sport now, but he is still plugged in on the NFL. Still, he worked for Fox, worked for CBS. Huge Giants fan, but a very rational NFC East fan. I will say that. And Emma Boylard coming up right after the break.